Yo YouTube, what's going on? And welcome back to a video in 2026. It's been a minute, let's be honest. I mean, I haven't posted in a long time, since probably Champions. But I mean, hey, it's a new year. VCT26 is here. America's has already started. And hey, if the other regions are as competitive as America's is looking, I think we're in for a pretty exciting year. We are going to go ahead and start our Pacific pick'ems, and I've already pre-selected them because this is my second time recording, and if I go game by game, it's far too long. So I'm going to try and be brief and keep this as short and digestible for you guys as much as I can. The one thing that I will say before we get into the pick'ems itself is if there's a team or a game in specific that you want me to, whether it's break down, analyze, just talk about and give my thoughts on the roster changes or the coaching staff, then leave it in the comments below, and I'm more than happy to start getting the content out there for you. So we'll go into the main bracket, the first round, I guess you could call it. First game is, of course, Nongshim versus Team Secret. Pretty straightforward, I think. Of course, Nongshim, this is basically the same roster that we've seen since last year, but they have made one change. I don't think Nongshim are going to look that different. I still think that in Ascension, we start to see them play more of the double duelist like every single other team near enough, with Francis getting on to the Yoru, and he looked pretty good. But I think what Nongshim have in their back pocket that not many teams do is that kind of instantaneous flexibility of swapping and changing from double dive to maybe a double senti, a double initiator, something along those lines. Team Secret, I do hope that they put up a bit of a fight just this year overall. I think it's a pretty shared opinion that I think Team Secret are very weak on paper compared to a lot of the teams. They've built a completely new team with no real players being kept from the previous rosters, other than, of course, Jesse Vash, the GOAT himself. I do think that Team Secret, the team itself, is built with just a lot of underdogs and a lot of players that want to prove themselves. And I hope that we can see them, honestly, whether it's upset a few high stock teams in Kickoff, or they just have a pretty consistent level of growth over the year. Of course, that's what you'd expect for any team, but I think for Team Secret especially, I hope that they don't get obliterated too often, I guess, is the way that I'd say it. I do have a concern for the coaching staff, because I do believe on VLR there is only one coach listed, and that is their academy coach, who's been promoted to the head coach position. So I really hope that Team Secret are able to sort of keep things together and keep cool throughout this kickoff, but also just this year. T1, I do believe that they are the favourites to qualify for this event, probably more than Paper X. The team is perfect. I mean, in terms of roles, in terms of ideas, I do feel like it's going to be interesting to see Munchkin on the main controller compared to like a Viper. But I think that with the time that they've had since the Soup tournament that they competed in, as well as a couple others, I think that he should be in prime form, ready to show us what he's got. Zeta versus Full Sense. I think that Full Sense, the only question mark that I have personally is, of course, with Jitboy's IGLing. I'm not doubting him. It's just something that I need to see for me to raise my investment in that team. Of course, Primi, Leviathan, Killua, the team is basically the exact same, but Cruz is now coach, which I think is actually going to give them a bit of an advantage, just because he knows the players so well. So he'll know the kind of comps that they might want to play. I'd really like to see him sort of adopt Frost's idea of a one and done comp, where you have a specific team that you pull out a composition for, but for them it can just be super like flexible in terms of nothing as crazy as deadlock killjoy compositions where we're like, damn, this takes like a lot of ideas, but more just like a ranked comp, almost the way that Varel play, which we'll get onto shortly. So yeah, I think Zeta Division, I mean, Mini joined them as like a coaching consultant, but I'd be very surprised if he has had that much impact this early on. I think this is just going to be for the greater good of the Japanese scene throughout the year, compared to just having instantaneous impact over Kickoff. Varel versus Global, I have gone for Global. I think that Frost, when he is in a situation where he's playing against a team like Varel, who play very ranked, W key kind of crazy ideas, I think Frost's going to pull out like a super hyper defensive composition, almost depending on the map and the side, of course. But I can see them playing like a double sentinel where it requires Varel, especially Ooze LP, which I'm just going to call LP from now on. A lot of microing, I would say. And I think especially from the coach, he's going to probably have to burn a couple timeouts pretty quickly just to address the team that, look, this is what we have to do at this point and that point. We can't just run it down. Because Varel, they can play double duelist in a chamber and then have a standard controller of Astra or Omen. And I'm worried for Varel, but at the same time, I think that if there's any place for them to pop off, it's going to be Kickoff. So we are going to back Global. I do like the Global roster. I think that this is the best year that Global's ever going to have in VCT, at least within the past like 4 to 5 years. So I'm really excited for them. DFM versus Global, DFM versus Genji, sorry. Genji, they've played in a lot of off-season tournaments and they just keep getting better and better. I'm slightly worried for Karen in a sense, with him on Senti. But it's Karen, so I think my doubts and suspicions will be sort of shut down pretty quickly. And of course, Lackey's IGLing and firepower. I think Lakia has been able to really kind of update himself in beating the unable to shoot allegations from certain like analysts and fans. But I do feel like this bracket might show him in a different light, because IGLing in a bracket with certain games that are as long as this, consistency is key. And I feel like if you get to that kind of lower bracket, I think he might struggle, but let's see. Of course, if we go to the second layer, like I said, T1 will beat Nongshim in my opinion. DRX, I do have them beating Full Sense, mainly just due to the fact that things are pretty much the same for DRX. They've only changed one player because Flashback retired for personal reasons, and Bane has now picked up IGLing, which I think is going to be a huge asset for the team going forward compared to Mako, because I feel like an IGL for me, and I feel quite strongly about this, is it has to be the leader, the captain, the energy, the passion, the dedication, everything. And I'm not doubting Mako, but I think with Mako's personality style of being quite introverted, laid back is the vibe that I get. I think that Bane will fit into that role like a glove, and it allows Mako to play more for himself. And we could be getting a 2023, 2022 prime DRX Mako, which excites me a lot. PaperX versus Global. PaperX have got a God Squad. I think this should be pretty straightforward. RRQ versus Genji. I have pretty high stocks in RRQ due to the coaching change. I've got nothing against the previous coaches of like Warbirds and I've forgotten the gentleman's name now. But I think Jovi is a really good coach. I think his ideas are great, and I think that him within RRQ is something I'm excited about. T1 versus DRX. I think T1 should win this pretty easily. DRX did pick up Hermes, which he doesn't have the greatest stats in the world, but I do feel like when you're in a team and your coaches are Glow and Termi, I think they can get the best out of you quite easily, and we've seen it countless times. So I feel like I'm going to underestimate him, and until he proves to me his peaks, I think it's going to be pretty good. My concern for DRX, though, is everybody knows the kind of comps you're going to be playing. You know, that double Waylay Yoru. It is a possibility that they change it due to Flashback leaving, but I can't imagine they're going to change much. Paper X versus RRQ. I think Paper X will just come out on top of this in terms of firepower. I do have faith that RRQ could upset Paper X early on here. Because I feel like if you're one of these big kind of 3 or 4 teams, you're looking at the kind of style and compositions. And for me, I feel like if I was one of these teams, I would probably try and make Forsaken's life as hard as possible in terms of like a double Senti, double controller kind of comp, maybe even adding a veto. Because every team's going to be playing double duelist on every map near enough. So that's my personal thoughts. I do have T1 beating Paper X and qualifying. I think that's pretty straightforward. Pretty basic as well. For me, I'm more excited about these bottom kind of lower rounds than the upper. I can skip over some of these. So Team Secret Genji, pretty self-explanatory. Team Secret, I think this is going to be a really harsh kind of kickoff for them because they're going to be fixing a lot of things, tweaking a lot of things, and adapting to a lot of their oppositions. And I think with a lot of these teams, they've somewhat kept a core. And Team Secret, as well as maybe like Zeta, I guess, are coming in with a core, and I think that gives them a tremendous advantage. So Team Secret versus Genji, Zeta versus Global. Same again. I have a lot of faith in Frost, Autumn, Xavi, just the Udotan, the whole team of Global. I've got a lot of stock in, and plus Global has got like some of the. I swear they've got an army of assistant coaches as well. So if they do start choking, then it's like Zeta last year where they can't play Icebox and they've got 20 coaches. Viral versus Full Sense. I think this is going to be a banger game, by the way, because you've got 2 teams that just like to shoot. And this, for me, I think Full Sense should come out on top. You've got Korean W Gaming versus Thai. And I think I'd favour the Thai people in this one. DFM versus Nongshim. I think Nongshim. I've got a lot of faith in Nongshim. To be honest, when it comes to this lower, there was a part of me that wanted to just put them all the way through because I'd love to see them have a really standout year where they can qualify to maybe like 1 or 2 internationals. Full Sense versus Nongshim. Nongshim again. I think RB is I think he's very comfortable in the IGLing position now, and I think with Francis on Yoru, I think he looks unstoppable. And I also respect the coaches of Nongshim quite heavily. So Genji versus Global. This is a 50-50. I think this is going to come down to potential firepower. But to be honest, I could probably pick Global here as well. But I feel like as much as I want to put a lot of stock into Global, I think there's going to be a lot of nerves and a lot of pressure. And I think they might not be as composed as I'd hope them to be in a way. But we'll have to see. DRX versus Genji. I think DRX should come out on top. DRX versus RRQ. Same again, I have RRQ, a lot of faith. And then a rematch with Paper X. I think Paper X will qualify and win. And then if we go down to the lower, Team Secret, I do feel like they'll be getting their first win against Zeta, which would be sucky for Japanese Valorant because we've got both of the Japanese teams going out. Nothing against them. I just feel like they're going to be a team that probably thrives more in the regular season than in this fast-paced kickoff format, in my opinion. But I think that both of these could be like 60-40, 50-50, 70-30 kind of odds. Viral, honestly, if I was to give my thoughts on Viral unbiased, I watched them at the Soup qualifiers and or the Soup main event, sorry, and they are a very exciting team to watch, but I worry for their compositions and overall identity. I think there's a couple teams throughout VCT that have been quite blessed with the increase in double duelist. And I think within the next month or two, Valorant or Riot Games are going to release and patch notes where Yoru's going to get a nerf, and all of a sudden teams that have kind of built their rosters around double duelists are almost going to start panicking, or definitely not reach the same peak in which they did with the double duelist. So Varel is definitely a team for me that make me worry. I do feel like you can game plan against them very easily. The only thing that can kind of counter your game plan is they just hit shots. Like on certain maps, they really do play some crazy ranked stuff like Chamber, Neon Yoru, or Waylay Yoru, and it's like, I think that there's a lot of gaps that you have to fill in with those kind of compositions, but regardless, let's move on. Full Sense versus Team Secret. I think Full Sense should come out on top with this. Varo versus Global. It's a rematch, but let's go with that. I just feel like LP is going to have a hard time countering against Global. I hope that Global don't play a double duelist. If they play a double duelist, then I'm going to be a little bit annoyed. Because I feel like if I'm playing against Varel in a lot of these matches and potential rematches, I just pull out a double controller, double senti comp or something. Play no sent. Yeah, you could play like a deadlock veto. I completely forgot that Cypher's been nerfed to the ground. So if you were to play a double senti, you would probably want to do a deadlock veto or deadlock killjoy or something along those lines. It's hard. It's really hard to kind of put your finger on where the meta's at now. You could do a deadlock sage, double wall comp. That'd be quite nice. And then a Viper. Yeah, it's interesting. Global have a lot of options, and I'm hoping that Frost cooks. So Nongshim versus Global. I do feel like Nongshim can win this pretty easily. Genji versus Full Sense. Yeah. It's really nerve-wracking because I think Genji signed Zinx, they still have Ashe, they have Texture, they have Karen, and they have Lakia. I am worried for this team because Zinx, as good as he looks, we've not seen him on the tier 1 stage yet. And I think if they are going to invest in this double duelist, give me Zinx and Texture versus like Primi and Thigh or Primi and Killua. I think I would favour Full Sense. So I think that Lakia and the coaching staff of Genji really have to mastermind the shit out of this game and just a lot of these games. Regardless, Genji versus Nongshim. I think I favour Nongshim again. Nongshim versus DRX. I favour Nongshim. Nongshim versus RRQ. This is the end of Nongshim's road. As I said, like just to back up, because I feel like a lot of people might dive to the comments and go, whoa, why is he so high on Nongshim? The rosters had the exact same kind of core of 4 players for the past 2 years. They climbed through Ascension. I feel like once they qualified for Ascension back in like October, September maybe, November I think. They just get straight to work. They've probably had adequate amount of time for rest and recovery. They're not going to be burnt out. The coaches are going to allow for a lot of time to cook and kind of experiment and practice the very fine micro details. And I think with all the teams that we're kind of ranking, it's the teams that have stuck together the most that are going to have an advantage. And then RRQ will qualify. And if these are the 3 teams that are going to Santiago, I think Pacific's looking pretty damn scary. But those are my pick'ems for VCT Pacific Kickoff. Let me know what you think in the comments below. It's pick'ems. You can never get 100%, especially with this kind of format where we have 3 lower brackets or 3 brackets overall. But hey, it's a bit of fun. It kind of allows me to talk about my feelings around some of the teams, and maybe, just maybe, we might get some pretty spot on ideas around each team's of level going into the tournament. I said it was going to be short and snappy, but we're just coming up on 20 minutes. So I'm going to leave it there. Like, subscribe. Let me know if you want a specific video in the comments below, and I shall see you in the next one.